Hi, I'm DuEwa Frazier, and you're listening to episode 58 of Nerdacity Podcast. And today my guest is author Courtney Duke Foster. Courtney is a lawyer and writer who was bitten by the writer bug almost a decade ago. She has written dozens of poems and short stories. Her short stories have been published in the Bay to Ocean Journal and The Fire Inside Volume 3. In 2022, Courtney published her debut novel, Passing Notes. She published the follow-up novel, Results Will Vary, in 2024. A graduate of Spelman College and Duke University School of Law, Courtney grew up in Maryland, where she lives with her two awesome daughters. In her spare time, she enjoys writing stories, of course, but also watching movies and attending musicals and comedy shows. She adores the art of storytelling in all forms. She loves writing stories that show the good, the bad, and the wondrous aspects of life and love with characters you wish you could hang out with. Visit www.courtneydukefoster.com for more information on her work. Also, I hope you'll follow Nerdacity at NERDACITYARTS on Instagram or via Twitter, now called X, at NerdacityPod1. And feel free to check out my website at DuEwaWorld.com. Thanks so much for listening. Greetings, Courtney. How are you doing?
Sorry, good. I had to unmute myself. I'm sorry. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me on Nerdacity Podcast. I'm very excited to talk with you about your books and your writing life.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And so, Courtney, I'd love to start for our audience. If you could just share with us, when did you first know that you were a writer? Just kind of giving, you've probably talked about this before, but for our audience, if you could just kind of take us through a bit of your journey.
Yeah, I actually don't think that anyone has asked me that specific question before. Like, when did I know that I was a writer? So I had to think about it. I had, as a kid growing up, I would write poems occasionally. And when I had kids, I would write poems for them to like read at church or other types of programs. So it was just kind of like an occasional thing that, I never really considered myself a writer. But then in 2016, my father asked me to write a poem for our family reunion. And I didn't have any idea what I was going to write about. Um, and the blank page was pretty daunting for me. I was almost at the point where I was like, I don't think I can do this. But I started writing and I got some words down, and it really just kind of flowed, and it was received really well. I enjoyed the process, so I kind of got addicted to like the process and making something out of nothing. So I was writing poems more often. And I would, and so it would just help me feel better about like life challenges and relationship challenges and things like that. So I think that's when I considered myself a writer. Even though at that time I was really just doing it for myself and sharing it with like friends or family or whatever. But I think that's when I thought of myself as a writer.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I know that everyone has kind of that a different journey toward writing. So it's always wonderful to hear that. Like for people who may be emerging writers or thinking about getting into writing, when they hear this, they can be encouraged from
Mhm.
how you started and what that experience was like for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I agree. Everybody has a different path. I'm a lawyer. I was, always a lawyer, so I write, but it wasn't really like the fiction and poems and essays that I do that I was doing for, personal satisfaction. So yeah, it is nice to hear when other people, aren't like on that, journalism and, English major track, and they kind of still end up in the same place. It's fun to hear those stories.
Of course. And Courtney, since you did mention your profession, how do you balance your writing life with your professional life and other obligations?
Yeah, balance is it's a constant challenge.
Mhm.
um like we're all so busy, and our kids are busy, and our we have parents and friends and all of that. So I mean, I kind of think it's kind of a fallacy. But it's achieving it, because I think, when we think of balance, we think of like the scales, and like you're gently and judiciously placing responsibilities on one side or the other to keep things even. But in reality, you have to, I mean, there's just a lot of times you have to dedicate more all of your time to certain responsibilities. And you end up neglecting others. I think that's just a part of life. For the most part, it kind of feels like you're like riding a tricycle, is what I envision. You're on a tricycle, on a tightrope, while carrying all the burdens of life, trying not to fall off and have everything come crashing down at the same time. Um,
Yes.
but when things are busy, I think you just have to use all of the tools at your disposal, like, your calendars and your planners, and just be very intentional. I find, I can get like sucked into a rabbit hole of a particular task once I get into it. So, like setting a timer for me, like, dedicating a particular amount of time to a certain thing. And then the timer kind of like breaks me out of that kind of tunnel vision. And then I have to be kind of disciplined and committed to being strict with it, but kind of, not rigid. So, you get to a place where you can pause, and then you move on to the next task. But it really takes a lot of intention to get any sense of balance, really. But I think that it just looks different from day to day, from week to week, from year to year. And the most important thing is to be flexible and forgiving of yourself.
Wow, I really appreciate that. Just mentioning the intention, and then the last part you mentioned, being flexible and forgiving of yourself. That makes me think about giving yourself grace.
Yeah.
And I mean, because you've done something really amazing. Not only have you written and published one book, but two books, and that is the dream for so many people who may not be a full-time writer. So I just appreciate you discussing that experience that you have.
Right.
And Courtney, you published, or your book, your novel, Passing Notes, was published in 2022. Can you discuss your inspiration for your novel?
Yeah. Well, so when I first started writing out, like I said, I was writing poems. And then I just, one day I said, well, wait, what can I do? I think I could try to write a short story. And that story ended up being like 40,000 words or something. So it wasn't
Wow.
exactly a short story. And then I continued writing other stories, like pulling characters from that first story, and I'd write other ones, and they were also pretty long as well. So, like Passing Notes can kind of was a prequel to, like an origin story for one of the characters in that original series of stories. So that's kind of, where like the inspiration for just even the idea of the story came from. And then, the plot of the story, because it's about a young woman that is, graduated from college and is starting a career as a teacher, but she and a friend have an opportunity to go to New York and work for a publishing company, and they want to do that so they can take advantage of better opportunities in the North, than where they were in Washington, D.C. And the main character ends up passing for white, to take advantage of a particular job opportunity that kind of she stumbles upon. So,
Mm.
that kind of connected with this origin story for this particular character. And this would be about like her mother and her parents and how she kind of came into existence. But I was just always fascinated with the concept of passing, and
Yeah.
how you might come how it might come about in an individual person's life, and what impact it had on that person's life and their family, as a result of making that kind of choice.
Wow, that's amazing. It makes me think about Passing by Nella Larson.
Mhm.
And did you ever see the Netflix adaptation of that, the film?
I
Uh,
did.
okay.
I read the novella and I saw the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Really
thought
interesting. Mhm.
yeah, it was good. I was already interested in the concept by the time I like read it in college and stuff because I saw Imitation of Life. I know if you've seen that
Oh,
movie,
yeah. The
the
it's a
50s
classic.
version.
Mhm.
Yeah. When I was little, I saw that with my mom, and I think that's kind of where like the concept was introduced, and like anything that kind of had anything to do with it, like a documentary or something like that, I would watch it. So that is in that group of interest for me. So I saw that, and I think that's set in the 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
My book is set in the
The
50s.
50s, yeah.
Um, and I think, there's different challenges and different risks that people take depending on where they're doing it in history.
Mhm.
And passing is also kind of like an outside looking in because you have the main character in that story is can pass, but she kind of passes for convenience when she's
Right.
like eat at a restaurant or shop in a store or something like that. And
Getting married.
right. And then she's kind of a bit judgmental about this another character who is also passing, but she's like completely immersed into passing. Like it's a complete her past is a complete secret
Yeah.
um from everyone except for the main character who knew her growing
Who
up.
knew her prior to right, her adult
Yeah.
years, exactly.
So
Wow.
my book the main character is the one who has decided to pass. So it's kind of like an inside looking out, like what is the
Mm,
thought process, and how does this impact this person who has kind of stumbled into this lifestyle, um pretty kind of unwittingly, not by choice,
not by
but
choice, I see.
made the
Mhm.
choice to continue with it, once things get underway. Just a little different perspective, I think. But I think
Yeah.
that's important, because it's not, it's not a monolithic kind of experience.
There's not one way to tell that there's not just one way to talk about that experience, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Oh, well, that's awesome. And so, Courtney, would you be so kind to read us a brief excerpt from Passing Notes that you've selected?
sure, absolutely. I'm gonna read a portion that happens, after the main character's name is Cheryl Wilson, and she and her best friend Betty are the ones that went to get jobs at this publishing company. This is the point of the story; they've already been hired. The incident or the inciting incident of Cheryl being kind of thrust into this passing situation has kind of just happened, and this is where I'm going to start in the story after that point. Okay.
Sure, thank you.
So this is 215 fourth floor ladies lounge. If you lie, you'll steal. If you'll steal, you'll kill, Cheryl said as she glared at her reflection in the mirror of the fourth floor ladies lounge, reciting the exact words her mother had drilled into her and her sister throughout their childhood. The words were typically followed by, "Now go get me a switch," and then a severe whipping for having uttered an untruth. Lying was one of the most egregious offenses in the Wilson household. Not only was it evidence of a lack of integrity, but Perlene believed with every fiber of her being that lying was just a hop, skip, and a jump from becoming a murderer. Cheryl shook her head. I've been in the city for less than 2 weeks, and I'm already acting like I forgot what my parents taught me. Thinking about how disappointed and hurt her family would be if they knew what she had done was unbearable, and she was on the verge of losing her mind when the door creaked. It opened slowly, and Betty peeked in. The tears misting in Cheryl's eyes turned into a downpour. Oh, Betty, she sobbed as they rushed towards each other. Shh, it's okay, honey. Please don't cry, Betty pleaded as she rocked Cheryl and rubbed her back for several minutes while she sobbed uncontrollably. I I Cheryl tried to talk, but she was close to hyperventilating. Breaking their embrace, Betty held her at arm's length. You have to calm down. There is no time for hysterics. Cheryl took several slow, deep breaths and stopped crying enough to articulate her thoughts. What have I done? I can't do this. I can't pass. It's a lie. I'm not a liar, she shrieked, pacing the floor. Betty leaned against the cold tile wall and allowed her friend to venture off the deep end for a minute. The fourth floor was unoccupied and the fifth floor was unfinished. There was no reason for anyone to be on either floor, which meant there was very little chance anyone could hear them. You didn't lie, you simply didn't correct her mistake. There's a difference, Betty said. Cheryl looked at her friend like she was speaking a foreign language. What are you talking about? She shouted. Have you never heard of lying by omission? She threw her hands in the air. I can't do this. I'm going up there to tell Mrs. Kavanaugh the truth right now. She headed for the door. Betty grabbed her arm. You can't do that, Cheryl. What do you think they're going to do? Chuckle and send you back to the secretarial pool as if you played a naughty little prank? She shook her head. No, they will fire you on the spot. And I get the impression that Mrs. Kavanaugh is the type who would make it her mission to ensure you never work anywhere else in the city. Your career will be over before it even starts. Cheryl couldn't deny the truth in Betty's words, especially after witnessing how Mrs. Kavanaugh had treated Gail. She suddenly felt like she was in a hopeless situation that was going to end badly no matter what she did. Betty, she's going to find out sooner or later. I think later will be worse. Who's going to tell? Certainly not me, and no one else here knows, Betty said. You're forgetting about Ruth. Surely she knows. Betty flashed a sinister smirk. I've already taken care of Ruth Fitzhugh. Cheryl's brow furrowed. How in the world did you do that? After I came back from delivering your employment documents, Ruth pulled me into the office and closed the door. She asked me what happened upstairs. I told her that I just delivered the envelope and came right back. Then she asked, so that old battle axe is really making a colored girl the receptionist? Cheryl's eyes widened. What did you say? Betty smirked again, this time more proud than sinister. I said, what colored girl, Ruth? Looking most confused. Then she said, your friend, of course, the girl I sent up there with Mr. Burr's package. Then I said, oh, her? She's not colored. Then I looked at her like she was certifiably insane and said, you thought she looked like a colored gal? Betty burst into laughter. I wish you had seen her face, Cheryl. You could have knocked her over with a feather. Cheryl gasped. You're pulling my leg. Betty raised her right hand like she was taking an oath. Hand to God. What happened then? Betty's story sounded like a soap opera. Cheryl had almost forgotten it was about the tragic turn of events in her own life. You mean after she picked her jaw up off the floor? She giggled. She told me to get back to my seat, and that was the end of that. So you don't have to worry about that, Ruth. She was mortified at the thought of wrongly accusing a pretty white girl of being a Negro, of all things. She rolled her eyes. She'll never make that mistake again, especially with Mrs. Kavanaugh. Worrying about her own job security was heavy enough. Now that Betty had gotten herself tangled up in the web of deception with her, both their jobs were at risk. The weight on her shoulders was almost too much to carry. Cheryl grabbed either side of the sink to brace herself. I need to resign. Betty shoved her arms into a fold. Now, why would you do a fool thing like that? When I get caught, they'll fire us both. Moving away from home and getting this job so we don't get stuck in a classroom for the rest of our lives is all you've talked about for months, Betty. I can get over my own disappointment, but I couldn't stand having yours on my conscience too. Just thinking about it makes my stomach churn. Then don't think about it. Just think about being the best white girl you can be. Cheryl shot a look at Betty over her shoulder. I've spent my whole life having to prove I'm colored, making sure I don't do or say anything that somebody might misconstrue as acting white. I can't switch gears now. I just want to play the cards I've been dealt. Betty grabbed Cheryl by the shoulders and positioned her squarely in front of the mirror over the sink. You are playing the cards you were dealt, and it's a damn good hand.
Wow. Cheryl is really has a decision to make. That's
Yeah.
tough. That is wow. I was just so engrossed just the whole reading of it. Like, you have, an audiobook or, do you think that's
Mhm.
something you might do?
I don't have an audiobook and I don't have immediate plans for that, but
Yeah.
people do ask me that because that is very popular. That would be nice. But no, not at this time.
Oh my gosh, I could just see the both of them and just feel the, emotion of it, for Cheryl. That's just wow, that's phenomenal. I could really see it even as, a film even.
Oh, cool.
Just
Yeah.
yeah, so that's thank you so much for that.
Thank
And
you.
so, Courtney, you also have another book that came out, and that is Results Will Vary.
Mhm.
And can you talk to us also about this book and your particular inspiration for this novel as well?
Yeah. This Results Will Vary is about Cheryl's grandson. So the two books are connected. It's I guess a bit of a sequel, but it sort of skips a generation. So,
Hmm.
and I wrote it right after I finished the first draft for passing notes. So they kind of have been going in tandem, so to speak, in
Yeah,
the beginning. Because I always, it just, passing notes kind of it ends, it has a conclusion, but there's still so many questions about, what happened. So I always wanted to kind of, explore what the impact is of this kind of decision on, the next generation and the
hmm,
generations after that. And in this, and results will vary. The main character is, he's a musician. He's had some kind of career derailments. He was, pretty popular and well known. So he ends up on this celebrity genealogy show, like Finding Your Roots.
oh
And
yeah,
he finds out at that time about his grandmother's secret and his family secret. And, kind of has to figure out what that means, for his identity um, and it answers questions that he always had about that side of his family and stuff, but it kind of changes what he might think of who he is and his place in society as well.
sure. And I also want to make note, as with with your first book, Courtney, that this book is most recent and was released before the new year. Is that correct?
Well, right around like early January, yes,
Oh, early
that time.
January.
Mhm.
Okay. I was just looking at the date on the Amazon.
Mhm.
But also, I love the cover with the young man playing his guitar, and he's got like the tatted arms and everything. That's just a really unique cover as well.
Thank you. It was done by a well from um the Washington Metro area, so a local artist actually did both covers. She did passing notes and this one. So shout
Oh
out
wow.
to Rochelle.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And Courtney, would you be so kind as to grace us with another excerpt? This one being from Results Will Vary.
Sure, I can do that too. This excerpt is going to be after Drew is the main character. He has decided after talking with his sister and his father, who is adamantly opposed to him doing this show, that he's going to do the show. So this is kind of like a preliminary interview situation with one of the producers. That's this part that I'm going to read. Okay.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Drew, you don't mind if I record this, do you? Asked Kelvin Pierce, head producer slash genealogical researcher from Bloodlines. His long dreadlocks hung down on either side of the video camera while he adjusted the focus. I try to record as many of my interviews as I can, he said as he bent over and twisted his hair around itself into a giant nest on top of his head. It'll help me keep track of what we talk about, and it'll help you get more comfortable talking about things on camera. By the time we take the show, you won't even notice the cameras anymore. It comes off way more natural. Drew shrugged. It's cool with me, but I don't you guys only deal with celebrities? Aren't they used to being on camera? Kevin pursed his lips. You'd be surprised how tongue-tied celebrities get. I'm talking politicians, talk show hosts, performers. They all have problems just being themselves a lot of the time. Athletes are usually worse, but people don't expect them to be particularly articulate. He chuckled. Drew laughed too. So, what do you think happens when you die? Calvin asked as he lowered himself into a chair next to the tripod he had set up in Drew's dressing room. Wow. Is that your warm up question? Drew feigned a shudder. I'm scared. My warm up question was, do you mind if I tape this? He smiled. Look, Drew, there are no right or wrong answers. If you don't know the answer or you really haven't thought about it before, just say that. Drew nodded. I'm not sure what happens when you die. I was raised by a religious mother. She wasn't what I would call a fanatic, but church on Sundays, grace before meals, prayer before bed was a norm for us. No matter where my dad was stationed, she always first found out where the chapel was located and second where the food was. Always those two things, always in that order. So I'd like to think there's a heaven, especially since she's gone. It's nice to think that she went somewhere and that I might have a chance to see her again. So you think you'll see her in heaven? Drew laughed. Well, that would be my first choice, but if I don't make it up there, I might know a couple of dudes in the other place. Ha, it'll be good to see them again too. That's great, man. You're funny, Kelvin said. I'm sorry you lost your mom. Sounds like you were close to her. Yeah, I was. I could talk to her about anything. Kelvin arched an eyebrow. Oh yeah? You told her everything? Well, maybe not everything, at least not automatically, but she had a way of getting me to share even some of my deepest teenage secrets. After all these years, she's still the first person I think about calling when something big happens. Her death certificate says she died in a car accident. Drew stared at him with his mouth open slightly. He wasn't prepared to talk about his mother's death. Drew, Calvin said, some of the information we find out might not be pleasant to talk about. Someone will always be there to walk you through it, but you have to get used to talking about difficult subjects. Drew inhaled and blew it out slowly. Yes, my mother died in a car accident. She got T-boned by a Hummer. It was a distracted driving situation, he said, lowering his head. I'm sorry, man. Was anyone prosecuted? They didn't have too many laws restricting cell phone use back then. Besides, she was the distracted driver. She was leaving a voicemail and ran a red light. That's tough, man. Do you know who she was calling? Kevin asked. Drew closed his eyes, nodding slowly. Drew, honey, it's mommy. I just put the money you asked for in your account. Now I could only finagle 200 from dad. Leah needed help with some car repairs. Sorry. You and April will have to stretch it. I know you hate the idea, but maybe you two should reconsider moving in with us. I mean, with the baby coming and you on the road with the band so much, April's going to need help. Okay, call me when you can. I love. She was calling me, Drew said, and took a drink of water. Oh, wow, Drew, Kelvin sighed. I know that was hard, but you did a good job with it. If you can survive talking about something as tragic as losing a parent suddenly like that, then the rest of this will be a breeze by comparison. All right? He said, patting him on the shoulder. Is it all right if I ask you a question? Sure, Kelvin said. Feel free to ask any questions. I'm not saying I can answer all of them, but I'll do my best. Why did you ask? Why did you ask what I think about the afterlife? What does that have to do with my family history? Kelvin smiled. Real talk. Of course. Over the next several months, we're going to be going back in time. There will be nothing but discussions of once upon a time and what once was and who once was. I ask all my clients that question to find out where their head is at. If they ever think about what becomes of their relatives when they die. If a person is open to the concept that a human being's existence can transcend death, it makes this process easier. I think it makes the lives that our ancestors lived, no matter how long ago or how brief, that much more important because you believe they could still be out there somewhere, maybe caring about how their story is told. That's kind of deep. A smile spread across Kelvin's face. Oh man, you didn't think you was dealing with a shallow brother, did you? Not at all, Drew laughed. Well, like I said earlier, I don't want to monopolize your time. I know you're in between taping, but I wanted to show you what I've been able to pull together so far, he said as he reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. So, this is a rough outline of your family tree. Now, I haven't done anything with your mother's side of the tree because there's so much foliage, for lack of a better word, on your dad's side. The information is also easier to compile because of all the servicemen on that side. You were right about that, by the way. It's almost like military service in your dad's family was compulsory until I came along and blew that family tradition out of the water.
Hmm.
Yeah, man, you are squarely in the minority with your career choice. We're definitely gonna have to talk about how you broke out on your own one of these days. But anyway, I've gotten as far back as the French and Indian War. That's cool, Calvin. You've done a lot of work, Drew said as he surveyed the paperwork. He tried to offer a grateful smile, but couldn't completely mask his disappointment. I know it looks crazy, Drew, Calvin said, his shoulders slumped over ever so slightly. I promise it'll start coming together. I'm sorry, Kelvin. What you've done here in only a couple of weeks is impressive. I was just hoping to get a little more information about my mother's side. He said, I already knew about the military stuff on my dad's side of the family. He used to talk about it all the time. I found it interesting, but I could never really relate to it being a more artistic personality type. I always wondered if there were more people like me on my mom's side, but she never talked much about her family. Don't even worry about that. We will get to your mom's side and hopefully answer some of those questions for you. It's just easier to obtain and decipher military records. As soon as we sew up your father's side, we'll get right on your mother's family. Trust me.
Wow. I love that. And you know what, Courtney, just thinking about like how you wrote it, it's like Drew has this great supportive friend, just like Cheryl did in
Hmm.
her story, so I'm like hearing how Drew is able to tell his story and he's getting support for the, I guess, the search or the investigation he's got to uncover.
Hmm.
And then were you also thinking about Dr. Henry Louis Gates, finding your, I don't, what is it, Finding Your Roots show also that comes on PBS?
Absolutely. I love that show. That's
Yeah.
definitely I love how they kind of take, history and incorporate it into the family history stories that they put together so that you get context of what was happening, and then you get more of an understanding and empathy for kind of the decisions that the people made and stuff like that. So I like that kind of show. And there's other shows like there used to be one
Yeah.
on NBC that came on. I think it was Who Do You Think You Are?
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
I like that one too. It was similar, but this one is, it's a little bit different because they definitely show you, they do like the whole DNA thing, and they
Mhm.
give their guests like family trees and stuff like that. So it seems a little bit more intimate.
Mhm.
personal and finding your roots, I think.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, two great stories that you've written, Courtney, and I'm sure you are very proud of your accomplishments and that you are in already a professional. You're a lawyer, but you're also an author, which is, there aren't so many people that do that, and it's like you've accomplished both. So I think that's amazing.
Thank you. It's a challenge, but
And so, Courtney, just in thinking about Black writers today, just wondering with so much going on in society and in the world, do you have a thought about the need and purpose for Black writers today, and those of us who are very vested in telling our stories, archiving stories, and things of that nature?
yeah, I think I don't want to say it's more important today, but it does have a very strong significance with what's going on today and wanting to roll back kind of diversity programs and stripping libraries of books and we have to continue to tell our stories for not only our ancestors and the stories of our history and showing what our perspective is on those things, but also what our current culture, what our lives are now, and it's important for Black authors to write about historical things and current events and how it pertains to us as Black people, but also just to write in every category, whether it has anything to do with being Black or not, because it's important because our voices add a flavor to it, even if you never connect it to Blackness
Mhm.
necessarily, right? So I think it's important for the landscape. I think it's important to dispel ignorance about our community and our community as Black people in our different communities, African American, different African countries and cultures and Afro Latinos and things like that. So it's all important that all of us continue to write, because I remember hearing an interview with a Black female romance author, and she said, a white woman came up to her and talked about how much she enjoyed reading her books because she never thought about or never knew that Black people did romance. They like
Mm.
in real life, like she just thought that Black people had sex and that, there was no feeling or emotion connected to it. And,
Wow, that Black people don't have regular, normal relationships like
right,
anyone else?
right.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, and this was a real person saying this real thing to this person within the last 5 years or so,
Yeah, I can believe it. There's still so much ignorance, about Black people, people of color, so much myth, and so, yeah, I can appreciate that what you're sharing is, yeah, very much still happening, still out there.
Yeah. So it's important that we continue to write. And I don't necessarily think this author, harps on um racism or anything
Sure.
like that. She is just displaying, Black love and relationships. And all of that is just as important.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that. And Courtney, can you talk about other projects or anything upcoming that you are involved in that you're really excited about?
Sure. I have an excerpt in Results Will Vary at the end of a novella that I wrote around the same time. It's called Girl Group, and
Oh,
is it focuses um on a secondary character in Results Will Vary. But the main character in that story is his wife, who is a very small part in Results Will Vary. So she's the main character. She's gotten she's a performer and she's got invited to be a part of this kind of girl group that an old friend of her wants to start with women over the age of 35. So that's another music kind of novel, but it's
Mhm.
all, definitely centered around, the woman, the female perspective. And I'm excited about editing that and preparing that for publication. So it is
Oh,
novella. It's a novella length right now, but I'm considering adding to it to make it a novel length to add, more chapters to it.
sure. And does it have a character in it that is connected to results will vary? Or this is
Mhm.
an independent okay, it does, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the characters in Results Will Vary is a music producer named EJ, right? So he is the music producer of this girl group, and he had a previous relationship with the main character
Oh,
when they were younger. So
mhm.
that adds kind of a little spicy complication
Sure.
to the storyline. Yeah.
And yeah, that's awesome. We'll be totally looking forward to that. So congratulations on, your works in progress.
Thank you.
And so, Courtney, what, if any, might be any advice that you may have for emerging writers, or even, working adult adult working folk who have a dream to write a book, but they are very busy and they're trying to manage their lives and thinking about, hey, can I do this? Should I do
Mhm.
this? What are your thoughts?
So I tell everybody they should write a book. Anybody that tells me a remotely interesting story, I'm like, you should make that a book. And most people are like, yeah, sure, whatever. But if you are starting out, there are people who are at whatever level you're at. I think it's always good advice to be patient with yourself. Like if I've been, writing, I guess considering myself a writer like we talked about earlier for only like 9 years at this point, right? And I still consider myself a new writer. But it's even with 2 books, I
Yeah.
still consider myself a new writer, and I look back on where I started, I look at old stories,
Mhm.
and when I was writing a lot more often, when I had more time to kinda do it at work, because I have a different position now, and I was writing so much, and I was just writing whatever I, um was inspired to write, right? And I didn't, wasn't paying attention. I didn't know all the rules. I didn't know anything about it. I just know how it made me feel to do it, right? So I would go with that. And I look back on that stuff and I'm just like cringing because it's so terrible. But it's a place, it's a start. And
Yeah.
once you get started, you just will it will flourish, and you have to be patient with yourself. You have to take whatever time you need. If it's 10 minutes a day, if it's 5 minutes a day, write a couple sentences. If you don't have anything, you're not inspired to do anything, do some research, look at interviews, join a community to see what's out there, take a class, and and you'll find a network of, a community of supportive and encouraging people that, write similar things as you. So I would just encourage people to just get into the writer space if they're new. It's a lonely process. You are writing typically on your own for a lot of hours. You can get sucked in and you're in your headspace, but step outside sometimes and talk to other people who are where you are and also where you would like to be. So that's very helpful.
That's excellent advice, totally. And Courtney, please tell us how we can best connect with you, and also the best ways to support your work.
I post most updates and things like that about my books and writing and events and stuff on Instagram. at by Courtney Duke Foster on Instagram. And I have a website, CourtneyDukeFoster.com. My books are available kind of anywhere where you would buy books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I even have, if you're in Prince George's County in particular, both books are available in the library. Results will vary is on the Libby app. I have, physical copies and ebooks for both, not audio, unfortunately, sorry. Um, but it's you
But
can
coming soon, probably at some point.
oh yeah, hopefully that will be, the next aspiration for me.
Wow, that's amazing and so wonderful, Courtney. It was so nice to have this talk with you on Nerdacity Podcast. And thank you so much for sharing your books with us. Totally, we look forward to your future works. And of course, feel free to always drop a line in terms of what you have that's coming up, and we'll certainly support your new works as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real fun conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you again, Courtney, and do take care.